I sympathize with the victims, but the government will cooperate with them. We will give them all the support.
Can a nation more vulnerable to climate change be prepared for the worst to happen than the recent flash floods already experienced?
I can tell you, Gambia is one of the most vulnerable to climate variability and climate change and all of the related disasters.
What we need to understand is nature is true and nature is beyond us, and climate change is real.
Are there plans for Gambia's rising population and the need for a second capital in a new democratic dispensation that is fought with blood and sweat?
I also think it would not be out of place for Gambia to cite another capital other than the Banjul, and Banjul will still remain the commercial center.
And what is the action of government and climate experts to avoid further national disasters? The Gambia, a country with an increasing population and no stranger to the effects of climate change, has endured many impacts of varying weather patterns, a phenomenon described by technocrats as alarming.
Gambia is one of the most vulnerable to climate variability and climate change and all of the related disasters. These are due to certain factors, climate hazards, that we are currently living with.
What we need to understand is nature is true and nature is beyond us, and that is what we are living. And I'm saddened that because of our bad policies in general, not only African government, including Gambia, will create these kinds of disasters. And Gambia, unfortunately, if we are not careful, if we do not have the right policies, we can face similar situations.
The policy warning has been upped, but could there be more serious reasons to worry about, having experienced already what many believe was the end of a rainy season?
If we have another year of bumper rain like we're having now, then it will be very serious. I have a chart which is telling us in August, you see, we have gone beyond what we used to have. So the pattern is we will have more rainfall this year than we used to have previous years. And what does that mean? Like I said, the good part is we may have bumper harvest, but the sad part is we may have disasters in the areas where people are living in water habitats.
We have various factors. One of the key factors that we may experience in this country during heavy storms accompanied by strong winds, which may have some damage on our infrastructure, is because deforestation. We have seen the disappearance of forest cover, and forest is very important in breaking winds.
The disappearance of forest cover has made the country experience troubling times of different weather patterns, resulting to erratic rainfall pattern that created serious economic shocks.
During the 1970s to date, Gambia being a Sahelian country, we have been experiencing drought for quite a time. So that the amount of water that we received is less than normal rainfall, so people think this is a habitable area. Places like Igbo Town, Talending Farokono, you want to build a house, you do not have the financial muscle to put all the reinforcement, concrete reinforcement to prevent water from entering your house. And if you do that, that also block or or disturb the natural flow of water. Of course, water, when it wants to get its way, it will get its way.
The Greater Banjul area continues to harbor exodus of the rural-urban drift from these hard-hit communities in search for better economic opportunities without caution to climate realities.
KM, we hosting about 1/4 of Gambia's population. And at the same time, 90% of the foreigners that are living within this country. And the business transaction that normally happens within the municipality, it cannot be quantified.
We have some communities that are more prone to disaster than others because of their location and because of their proximity to certain ecology. And at the back of certain communities, we have seen that the old settlements, they have planted trees that serve as windbreaks. But most of those things are disappearing because of want of economy over environment. And in some situation, yes, you may say economy, but the environment is more important because this has to do with lives and property.
The cost for human lives in many instances has been registered, from one rainy season to another. A factor disaster experts believe has to do with the planning of land tenure system of the Greater Banjul area and the Gambia as a whole.
You do a cost analysis or a benefit analysis, preventing the interest of an individual against the interest of 10,000 people. I think it is not fair. You have to prevent and guard and preserve the interest of 10,000 people against the interest of an individual. I think that is what is fair. But people go in to settle, and once you ask them, they will always tell you, I got this piece of land from the Alcalo, and then virtually you don't do anything. Oh, I got this piece of land from through a land tenure system. Like you claim to be the owner of the Telindi Faros, and therefore you could sell your piece of land to anybody. This is what is happening.
This is a country that is lawful. And the other thing is, I can even blame myself because I'm a native of this area. I was equally having a lot of lands in Talende. Maybe my family equally involved in selling some of those plots to some people who are settling down in Talende. And maybe during that time it was discriminately done. Because then the physical planning should have acted, should have been the ones that would have said this how the shape of the compound should be. But then it was randomly, somebody would just come and say, I give you from this corner to this corner, and you either give me a color nut or you give me $5,000 and you have a land. So that's how it was.
The problem of climate change is shifting dimensions, negatively moving from erratic rainfall pattern to heavy downpour that impacts negatively towards rural communities. The case of Kuntawul, the Tambi wetlands, and Basse has remained to be closely monitored by climate and water experts.
We are being told that climatic winds blowing in West Africa can bring disaster to Gambia. We are hoping and praying it doesn't happen, because we do not have the policy framework. Of course, we have a disaster management group that is looking at that, but it will be beyond them if that disaster happens. So let us pray that we will, this year, not be faced with that, but we must put a framework as early as now to begin to mitigate against those factors that can bring those kinds of disaster and calamity. We are getting our meteorology department to give us the right forecast, and hopefully government will come with a framework that, you see, unless we begin to deal with those issues before the calamity happens, when it comes, it will be disastrous for all of us.
Flooding, which is also Gambia is very prone to. This is caused by continuous heavy rain in lowland areas close to wetlands because of certain ecology and where the soil is already saturated. If you look at the Tanbi here, during rains, dry season is always wet. That shows you that this place is already saturated with water. So with water on it, heavy rains, it is likely to overflow its banks. And this is not only peculiar to wetland situations, but you may remember 2011, 2012, 13, in Basset, the river overflows its banks because of heavy rains. And these are situations that my ministry is looking at and is closely monitoring. And we are working on how best to map these places.
Saturated wetlands such as Kuntawur and parts of the Greater Banjul area has been overwhelmed with environmental risk. Victims of disaster still grappling with nature's call has captured the attention of the president. The disaster victims in the country have been overwhelmed with flooding. What is your government doing towards this?
I'm in contact with my government. I sympathize with the victims, but the government will cooperate with them, and I think there have been assessment done with the disaster management. We will give them all the support.
As the Gambia become more exposed to effects of climate change, there is more expected from its government and actors alike towards disaster management and preparedness.
They are using even the waterways, the riverine to dump. And those riverines where the sink, the water was coming from the hinterland, coming towards those areas. If you block them with waste, the water will not be gone. So instead, it will be forcing itself to backwards towards the residential areas. So that is the challenge we are having in the Greater Banjul area.
The issue is very complicated. There are a lot of combination of issues that are making the work of the NDMA and even the work of the physical planning very complicated. There are political issues, where you want to evict somebody because he has settled wrongly, and somewhere somebody would call to say, no, don't do this.